Hi. Okay, so this is Roseanne. I'm here with my good friend Leslie, and this is my latest Wonder Bra mission. Hi, Leslie. We're on Skype. Leslie is in Victoria, BC. So my mission for this week is your happy place, under the umbrella of Rediscover Your Happiness. So I was instructed to think of the person that inspired you to discover yoga, and let them know how it's brought joy into your life. So, after some reflection and some thinking, and I'm like, how did I discover yoga? Like, I feel like I've always known about it, like I feel like but, when did I get into it? So after a little bit of digging through the archaeology of my mind and my mining my experiences, I realized that the person who inspired me to discover yoga was my good friend Leslie, who now lives in Victoria. So I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story about how Leslie inspired me to discover yoga. It's not really that simple. It was kind of a long process, kind of like yoga itself. But in 1995, when Leslie and I were going to university together in Victoria, University of Victoria, 1995, I had just gotten to know Leslie, and Leslie took a semester off school, and she went and she lived at an ashram in southeastern BC, and to study yoga. And I remember being like, what? An ashram? Like, what? Like, I didn't understand it at all. I thought it was the craziest thing anybody could possibly do. Like, I didn't get why anybody wanted to go live in the woods. I didn't get the yoga. I didn't get the swamis. And I'm like, how can you cut yourself? Why would you want to leave this, amazing Victoria and our university culture and arty stuff and chasing boys and go and, like, live in the woods? So that was 1995, and Leslie did that, and I remember being fascinated by it and confused. Do you remember when I was like, hey, Leslie, like, what do you do if you want to read a magazine? Like, how do you read magazines at the ashram? Are there magazines there? This is before the internet was really popular, so that's how we connected to the world. And then shortly after that, hearing Leslie's stories about the ashram and about studying yoga, I took a couple of yoga classes myself at university and at UVic, and then I moved to England and I did a bit of yoga there too, and then Leslie went on to work at Ascent magazine. She was the managing editor there, so I learned more about yoga through her experience there, and I read the magazine. That was my introduction to Ascent. And then in 2004, I also went through my own life ordeal and decided to go live at said ashram where Leslie had lived in 1995. And I spent 2 years living there. And we even hung out a little bit there, hey? Like, didn't you come visit there?
Yeah. Some point.
Yep. And then I went on to work at Ascent magazine. So I basically followed in Leslie's footsteps. Not entirely, though, because Leslie went on and had twins and got married, and I didn't do that. So I don't copy everything that Leslie does.
There's still time.
So that's just a little bit of my introduction to the Leslie and Roseanne story of yoga. So maybe Leslie, like, what do you remember about 1995 and you going off to live at the ashram and, like, me being like, what are you doing? What is this crazy thing?
Well, you certainly weren't the only person who thought it was a crazy thing to do, partly fueled by the fact that I didn't know what to call this place, and so I called it a commune. And that, I learned afterwards, sort of made everybody think I'd gone totally off the deep end, and it was the second time in my life that my brother felt that I'd run off and joined a cult. But it's funny you ask about, why would I want to leave Victoria and our arts and culture and all the fabulous life that we had there, and because basically I was sick of hanging out with people my own age and being stuck in this little world that was just all about, having fun and making art and being so self-obsessed about this ultimately cool life that we had. I just got sick of the whole thing. And so going to the ashram, who I was introduced to through a friend, Clea, who you, of course, are friends with as well, and because she had grown up there. And so off I go. And the thing that I loved most was the fact that everyone else there was middle-aged ladies exploring their lives and rediscovering who they are. And there was only one other young person who basically didn't speak and much, and so I was essentially on my own with all of these, 40 plus people.
And you would have been like 19 or 20 or something?
I would have been 20, 21, I think I was. And it was fantastic. It actually really fueled my art and whatnot. I wrote a little kids book, and I did all sorts of things because I was basically hanging out with myself in evenings in a trailer, and in the day working and thinking and being pushed to, like yoga tends to, think and feel deeply about my life. So it was actually really a very deeply creative experience without the distraction of cute boys and
Parties
other
and stuff.
pleasures.
Yeah, and art openings and whatever else we did in university. So Leslie, I'm curious about where your yoga journey took you after that. Because you lived at the ashram when you were 21, 1995, for like
7 months.
7 months.
Yeah, it was there for 7 months.
Maybe just like a little kind of like a short synopsis of your journey after that, and what went on.
Well, I went back to university but kept quite close connection with the ashram and went back every half year for a week to up to 5 months, sort of over the next handful of years, and bounced around a bunch, but ultimately kept a really close tie there. And at one point, I can't even remember the year now, maybe 1990, no, 2000, no, that's really wrong, 2001. This was after Ascent had started and was going on in Montreal, and Clea, the friend who had introduced me to the ashram in the first place, asked me to come out and take on the role of managing editor for the magazine. And so I did. And I dragged my very new boyfriend, the lovely Emrys, who is now the husband and father of my children, out to Montreal. And we did that for a year and a half until we found ourselves pregnant with twins and went running back to the West Coast, which we love and where our family is. And after having kids, getting back to the ashram became much more infrequent, though I've taken them there a couple times. We were just there in September for a couple days, and they love it, and I love going back, and that's now that the ashram itself is very much like a second home to me. In terms of my actual yoga practice, it's up and down and around, but I'm happy to say that I'm come back into it recently. I have a fantastic yoga studio just down the block. So I wander over there at 6:30 on Mondays, and I have
in the morning, 6:30 in the morning?
No. Oh gosh, no. No, although I could. They do have an early morning one, but no, that won't work with getting kids off to school. But no, 6:30 in the evening I go do my class, and it's, I'm really, I feel like it's the start of something newer and deeper than it has been for the past decade. So it's a good timing for this conversation too, I'd say.
Great. So what inspired you to get back into doing, so basically you're getting back into an asana practice, right? You're getting back into a hatha yoga practice.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
What's inspired that?
Well, about a month or two ago, I looked at Emrys and I said, everything we do right now is either practical or escapist, which is usually in the form of watching good television shows. But there was nothing. I had completely stripped away all sort of creative and personal things that I would do. So I said that's fine. The kids are 7 now. Their space was opening up, so I could actually notice that I wasn't actually doing anything creative or personal, and felt that there was room to take back on. So I started going to yoga class. I'm going back to pottery. I've even started knitting again. Yay! Carrying around my little knitting in the bag that you knit for me many years ago. So, so it feels like it's part of that, and also being at a point where I'm really wondering what I want to do next. How I want to evolve my life has become the big question over the past 6 months, and I want yoga to be a more dominant part of that than it has been for the past 10 years. And so the asana practice is an easy way to get in to it. Plus my hips are sore, and it's hopefully going to help with that. And But I am considering, other steps to take it beyond the mat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I don't think of you as like my yoga friend. Like, you're not Leslie who introduced me to yoga. That's not how I think of you. You're my good old friend. We've been friends for like 15 years, right? So you're my, one of my oldest, closest friends. And I'm enormously grateful for your friendship in my life. And but it's interesting to kind of look at this yoga path that we've both been on in different forms and different times, different intervals, and how it's overlapped and crossed over. And there's also been in there as well, like we've lived in different countries. We've gone a year or two without seeing each other in person. And it also is for me like a good reminder that yoga is, as we both know, like more than what happens on the mat. And it is really, really about relationships, and it's about interconnectedness and how we relate to people and learn about ourselves. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for our yoga friendship, and now, even though we live on opposite sides of the country, we have this shared experience.
Yeah, I think it's great that that you've gotten into yoga to the extent that you have, because you've just blossomed with it, and I think, it's worked as it does. It works its magic and all levels of one's life if you let it in, and I think that's really cool. And you are now in tangible ways inspiring me to get back into it. So there's a nice circularity to this, because it's great. And I also like how it's a chain, because for me there was Clea, and she was my entry in, and then I was able to be that for you, and maybe a couple other people, and then you are being that for other people. It's just this. It really brings out the sense of the lineage, and how it's lineage more so than just what the teachers who lead us on that level, but also just individual to individual.
Yeah. It's really powerful and great. Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, Leslie. And,
anytime.
Yes, and I'm gonna stop recording now.
Okay.
And then we can have our proper goodbye and stuff. So